It's Gideon Haigh over here.
And it's Peter Lalor over here.
And welcome to Cricket et al., your independent cricket podcast, your iconic cricket podcast, Pete. How does it feel to be iconic all of a sudden? I've waited my whole life for that moment. How did it feel?
Just getting used to being a veteran cricket writer. Now I'm iconic. Gosh,
yeah. Look, it's great to be with you. It's as you know, we do this through to your virtual audience through various media that sometimes when we remember to turn the podcasting machine on. But tonight we're actually in the flesh. You get to see that these two rakish, charismatic individuals actually, they're just like you, really. They're just like you. We're more than just a 𝐒𝐭𝐴𝐿 live read. And Pete, it's a strange time of year. Do you find this? I'm feeling it's a time when the cricket season should still be on, but somehow it already feels over.
Yeah. What happened? What happened to the cricket season?
What happened to the cricket season?
Used to continue through to March, didn't it? And they gouged a hole in it.
Yeah, I'm glad you asked, because I went back over the last 30 years.
He's always leading me to some sort of answer.
Because the season seemed to end, didn't it, on January the 25th with the Big Bash League final. And I looked it up today.
I thought it ended the first week of January, frankly, yeah.
After 11 days.
Yeah.
20 years ago, at this time of year, the Tri-Series was still on. In 2007-08, the Tri-Series finished on the 4th of March, and in 2011-12, it ended as late as 8 March. So cricket's actually given up quite a lot of real estate in the calendar, hasn't it? In order, I guess, to meet its international commitments, which are in turn being squeezed by the encroachments of franchise cricket. How does cricket feel now? Does it feel as though we're still big, but the cricket got small?
It's a peculiar situation we're in, isn't it? Because it's evolving around us. You suddenly look up and go, hang on. When did cricket stop early in January? When did that start to happen? Because they do slowly and they don't sort of flag their intent, do they, with where they're going with this stuff? I mean, they've gouged that hole there for the BBL, so we have no first-class cricket at this time of the year. So you sort of get, well, for me, just sort of test match only, really. I get to the end of that, a test series, and you feel like you're getting off the end of one of those travellators in a airport. You sort of stumble around for a little while and the BBL's going on. But we're going to lose more cricket, aren't we, in the future than we're losing now?
Yes.
I mean, they're coming for January. The T20 leagues are coming for January, and that's a terrifying sort of situation that's evolving. Yeah,
and next season, of course, Australia goes to India. This time of year, we'll be in India this time next year, won't we?
Yeah,
because
that's true.
Straight off the back of the Sydney Test, Australia's on a tour to India to squeeze that in ahead of the Indian Premier League. So, I mean, everything nowadays is up for grabs, apart from the 10 weeks of the year that the Indian Premier League takes up. Everyone else is kind of being jostled for position.
Everyone's making room for their franchise cricket, aren't they? It happens in England in August now, that all first-class cricket stops so that the circus can come to town.
Yeah.
It happens in January in Australia so the circus can come to town.
So what are the implications of that, do you think? Does it mean that cricket's bandwidth in Australia is being narrowed by these commercial forces? How big is cricket now in Australia?
Why are you asking me these questions? You've got the answers to them.
I don't know the answers. I'm curious about what you might think.
I think cricket's lost focus on its core values. I think it's lost its compass. I think it understands cost. It doesn't recognise value. It has Test cricket is stronger now than it's ever been. It would be making more money
in Australia. It's stronger than it's ever been.
Okay. Well, I can talk to my experiences here. It's stronger now than it's ever been. I mean, unfortunately, it lost a lot of money this summer because England couldn't play. They just didn't show up, and that had a terrible effect on the revenues of cricket. But Test match cricket is at the heart of everything we do. It gets bigger, it gets stronger, yet so attracted to the revenue streams from franchise cricket around the world, it's nibbling away at it. And I say that they're coming for January because there's no doubt in my mind that with this push to privatise the franchises, the franchises are going to come in and say, well, how do we add more value than we've got? Because they're going to come in, they're going to be paying about $100 million for 49% of a cricket team. A cricket team that makes that much. They say, well, what do they want to do? They want to increase their profits. How do they increase their profits? The only way to make the BBL better is to have Australian Test players playing in it. The only way Australian Test players can play in it is if you move the January and January Test, isn't it? And perhaps the Boxing Day Test. What do you think?
Yeah. We got an insight today, didn't we, into the impact of this summer. I think some of you might have seen that Seven West Media brought out their half-yearly results, and they're down 2.1% on last year, and they're specifically blaming the shortness of the Test series this year, where we got 20 out of a potential 30 days. I mean, it's just as well, isn't it, that we're kind of halfway through that TV deal with Seven and Fox. We're halfway through it. It was a 7-year deal, so in some respects it was a conservative deal, and there's reason to be grateful for that.
Well, is cricket going down the wrong path, trying to privatise the franchises?
It's almost no point in asking that question because it's probably going to happen anyway, and it will have pluses and it will have minuses.
What are the pluses going to be? The
pluses will be, I think, that private investment does lead to innovation. It does lead to an improved outcome for the product because there's
a newfangled power play,
stake in it.
More fireworks.
But we lose. But at the same time, we lose control over a game. We lose to some degree the sovereignty that we've come to take for granted.
The franchise cricket, the BBL. Has done some very good things and is a very good product, isn't it? I mean, they've created something from nothing. They have moved away from their reliance on bilateral cricket for income, revenue, whatever that word. You know that stuff better than me. But they've created a beast, haven't they?
Well, the important thing was creating something to sell, wasn't it?
Yes. Yeah. Yep. And from the very early days, I remember, you'd see it in pubs in India. That was the very first version of it. When it was a state-based competition.
So we've had an Ashes summer this year. Traditionally, Australian cricket does extremely well in Ashes summers. Participation rates always rise. Public interest rates tend to rise. There's a vibe around the summer. What sort of vibe did we get around this summer, Pete?
Wow, I've never known more anticipation of a Test match series. And coming off, and I was interested to see how it would go because I watched what happened last year in the 𝐻𝐵𝐺𝐴𝐺𝐵𝐺 Trophy, and that was a massive series. That was a massive series, and I felt a real shift occurring in the way in who watches cricket in Australia, and and to have the sort of the Indian immigrants, of which there are so many now, flocking to the cricket and creating such an incredible atmosphere and a very identifiable crowd by the noise they make. By the enthusiasm with which they follow their teams. And I think I'm going to watch I reckon it's going to be an interesting social study because at the moment you go to Adelaide and the public half of the ground is Indian and the members section is free settlers. But I'm wondering when they'll actually get around there, when the real integration will happen.
Yeah, my partner went to her first Test match in the 𝐻𝐵𝐺𝐴𝐺𝐵𝐺 Trophy, and she said, this is great. How long's this been going on? Absolutely brilliant.
So that went up a notch, and I thought, they've really thrown the gauntlet down to the Ashes, and the Ashes went up, and the Ashes met the challenge.
So Janine had third-day tickets for Perth. She was really looking forward to it.
A few people did, didn't they?
She got a great refund, though.
Well, we were sold a lie, weren't we? There was no truth in advertising. We were all very excited about this baseball thing coming to town.
We were.
And finally, England, who'd won one Test 14 years ago in Australia.
I mean, that does tell you something, doesn't it? I mean, Australia should win Ashes series in Australia. That's the verdict of history from a very big sample size.
But I think most Australian cricket fans would have been a bit nervous going into this summer. I thought that England were a chance. Did you think they were a chance going into the summer?
Not really. No, I thought 4-1.
4-1.
I'm amazed that I was actually right, because I'm so seldom right about these things. But I do think that the World Test Championship has consolidated home ground advantage. What I didn't see was the proliferation of injuries that was going to cut Australia to basically a second string attack. I think it's amazing that Australia did as well as they did, all things considered. You know, England were actually really lucky this summer in lots of ways. They didn't have significant injuries. They basically didn't really have to change their top six until at the very end, when they included Bethel belatedly at the expense of Pope. They actually enjoyed all sorts of advantages this summer, and they did terrifically well up to lunch on the second day in Perth, and from that point the arc of history bent towards Australia. But things really couldn't have gone better for England, and the luck that they had, they didn't really deserve.
Yeah, and I don't know, sitting there at lunchtime on day 2 of the first test in Perth, England were 110 in front. Yep. They had 9 wickets in the bag. I was on Channel 7 and I was trying to get in. Everyone was writing Australia off. I was just trying to get in. Anything can happen in cricket, but there wasn't enough time to get in it, to get it out there. But I didn't really believe it would happen. Yeah, right. Everything changed in 1 hour and probably changed the tone of the whole series. But I don't think I've seen a team disappoint so greatly as England in this series. I mean, I was angry at them for not showing up, for not playing better cricket. And I was angry at them because I thought that they didn't show enough respect to cricket. Yeah. And I think that's what bit them on the arse, really. I think Baz McCallum thought he'd found the magic formula to cricket, which happened when he basically, well, it happened in that game that he played when Philip Hughes was killed, didn't it? And he said, I went out there, I didn't care about cricket, I scored 200 runs, I was that's clearly the key to being very good at cricket. But it's not. It's clearly not. If you need more than just talent to win cricket games. Maybe you can win T20 games with talent. Maybe you can win one-day games with talent. But I don't think it's enough to win a test match when it's drawn over 4 innings. No,
I think it sort of dawned on me that when I went out to Lilac Hill and saw the England preparations, and it was almost a village green out there, and I just walked away from it thinking, like Logan Roy, these just aren't serious people.
They did. Yeah. I do know that there were calls made from nobody official, but the old boys network of Australian cricket had rung the whacker and said, you do not let England onto the whacker to prepare for this series, because they were still upset that India had prepared on the whacker the year before and won the opening test match. So that's not going to happen this year. They get the worst possible preparation, but they didn't seem too concerned with their preparation anyway, did they?
So what were the highlights for Australia this summer?
There were so many, weren't there? As in, well, I think you saw, well, for mine, Alex Carey. Yeah. I think we saw the arrival of, perhaps one of the great wicket keepers. Yes. And I don't think we knew that. I don't think we knew that Alex Carey was that good. I remember when Alex Carey, because I don't know obviously everyone knows that Alex Carey was the captain of GWS and was sacked by Kevin Sheedy the year that they actually played their first AFL game and told to go and get a job as a plumber. Thank God he went and got a job as a wicketkeeper, or went back to cricket. And in that first summer when I think he took 99 catches, didn't he? Yeah. But everyone said, he's good at catching the ball, but he's not a wicketkeeper. What he did in that test match and the way he worked with the bowlers, with Nisa and Boland, by standing up to the stumps, you cannot underestimate the skill that took. I mean, you can stand up there and stop the ball, but you can't. I mean, there was poetry to the way he was keeping. Not only that,
you can do that with an attack that good, that precise. I mean, Jamie Smith couldn't have stood up to Bryden Cass.
But this is a no.
England would have lost the series on buys.
This is a skill set you can't train for. Yeah. because you cannot go into the nets and keep up, not even to a medium pace bowler.
No.
You are going to get killed if you go into a nets and do something like that. So I remember talking to this, because he seems so sweet and polite and innocent, doesn't he, Alex Gary? And he is. I mean, Woolworths have identified that. He sells their vegetables.
Yeah.
But I was talking to Steve Smith. Steve Smith says he's absolutely fearless. Like, they watch him go up there and he doesn't flinch. I mean, he's an extremely brave individual.
We've got a young keeper playing in my team at the Arrows at the moment, Stebo. He's a young Englishman and he stands up to the medium paces, and I can't tell you how it lifts a field and how it gets into a batter's head.
So, well, you could tell me, couldn't you? Because you still try and bat. Do they ever do that to you? If they come up?
Yeah. You're thinking about it. You're always thinking about it.
The leash is shorter, isn't it? You're on a short leash as a batter, and it makes a big difference. And those catches he took, and the runs that he makes as well. You know, so for me, that was the most exciting thing of the summer. Yourself,
Mitchell Starc. I mean, he's just, there's something absolutely preternatural about Starc and his resilience. I mean, he's 36 years old now. He's probably in the best form of his life. I think for a long time, I was thinking about this over summer. You know, why was appreciation of Mitchell Starc suspended for so long? Why did it take so long for people to catch up to Starc as a significant Test cricketer? And I think one of the reasons is he was so good at white ball cricket. He was regarded as a kind of a white ball guru. He was the guy who bowled the Yorkers at the end. He could be devastating.
Knocked over McCullum first over the World Cup.
But his red ball form was kind of held up in comparison with his white ball form. I think almost if there hadn't been a white ball Starc, we would have appreciated the red ball Starc more clearly. And it's interesting that his red ball emergence, or the consolidation of his red ball career, has taken place against the backdrop of the kind of the decline of white ball cricket in Australia, white ball international cricket. You know, who can remember the last time Australia played a one-day international? But, you know, we used to set our watches by when the next ODI was. But who can remember the last time Australia played an ODI?
Starc's become a much better bowler in the last few years. I mean, it's all around, and I suspect that part of it sets the expectation of his role in the team, because you know, if it's not swinging, get him off. You know, he can bowl nose and toes. He can't do much else, and he did what was asked of him. And he was very slow to realise that perhaps he needed to pick up the same skill set as his two best mates, Hazlewood and Cummins, which is that wobble seam delivery, which has changed everything for him. I mean, and his endurance, his physical strength and his attention to detail. And this is a guy who's skipped IPLs for years. His manager can tell you how much money he's cost his manager by skipping the IPLs. You know, 10%. And I think I think it's about $25 million he's passed up. I mean, I think one year he was offered $2 million to go to the IPL, and he said, no, I want to have a holiday with the missus. I said to him, you could buy her an island, mate. You know? But it wasn't just about having a holiday. It was actually attention to his physical needs, because, I mean, he bowls a hell of a lot. He bowls twice as much as his captain. You know, he's the guy who's sent to Sri Lanka to bowl in the difficult conditions and things like that. And he's just got himself right, and I hope we have a few more years of him, and I think we will, actually. Yeah.
There's also no one around like him. There's no one around who bowls that angle at that pace with that particular set of skills. So it's very difficult, I think, for teams to prepare against him. I mean, if you were England, how are you going to go about preparing to face Mitchell Starc? You can't clone him.
No.
So he's got a value that transcends his numbers, and he does seem to have that capacity for explosive breakthroughs, doesn't he?
Yes, yeah. I pity batters in that first over against Mitchell Starc. You know, it's coming. But even when it comes, you can't do much about it. And now that he's become so unpredictable with where the ball's going, the wobble seam's a really interesting thing. Did you know the world wobbles on its seam?
Oh, right.
We did, yeah.
That's your takeaway for tonight, folks.
There'd be people out there that would know more about that than me, but the world wobbles on its seam too. But wobble seam bowling has replaced swing bowling, really, hasn't it?
Or reverse swing bowling.
Reverse swing bowling. That's why I went like that.
obviously this season signified the first stages of a transition for the Australian side with the retirement of 𝐒𝐮𝐬𝐫𝐞. Does it feel like that we're on the threshold of great change in that Australian side?
How come you're going to be the guy that asks the questions tonight?
No.
Well, how does this work? This isn't the
I'm
usual
enjoying this,
dynamic. Teams are always in transition. Though. Cricket teams are in a constant state of transition and evolution, aren't they? This Australian one sort of feels like it's been stuck in aspic for some time.
I always used to say it's like painting the Sydney Harbour Bridge. If you've no sooner finished it, then you have to start again.
Yeah. Myth.
Myth?
Yeah.
I knew I was asking the expert.
Where were we? Losing 𝐒𝐮𝐬𝐫𝐞. Yeah. It's very interesting, isn't it, losing 𝐒𝐮𝐬𝐫𝐞? I mean, replacing openers is so difficult. It took so long to find somebody post Haigh and Lalor.
Yes.
Is that right? Am I missing an era? Warner comes along. Did Warner have 13 different opening partners in his career? Just shows you what a difficult task it is and how difficult it is to find somebody to be an opener. Since he's retired, you'd know better than me, either 5 or 6 or 7 people been through that role, and the greatest minds in Australian cricket came up with Nathan McSweeney, came up with Constance, came up with, who did we get this year? Jake Weatherall this year. Then, 𝐒𝐮𝐬𝐫𝐞 gets stuck in the toilet on day 2 of that test match, and someone's got to do it, and Head does it. And you go, oh, geez, no one had ever thought.
So lo and behold,
we've got the new opener, and probably changed.
The loss of your openers ended up opening up a middle order vacancy.
That was a very happy accident for Australia. 𝐒𝐮𝐬𝐫𝐞 breaking down in that first test. Probably changed the nature of the series, and probably will change the way Australian Test team plays from here on in, because you play differently with a Travis Head at the top of the order.
What did it tell you about the Australian setup that they turned ahead in those circumstances? I actually thought that it really spoke quite well of the leadership and the coaching, that they were prepared to give Travis his head, as it were, to give him the opportunity to put his hand up and say, "I'll do it," because they'd auditioned him before. Of course, he'd done the job in India and Sri Lanka. But the circumstances were perfectly set up for him in Perth. I can remember
there wasn't a lot of thought behind it, though, was there? Because when there was thought behind it, they just moved Marnus up to open, and that hadn't worked in the first. And then they were surprised. They were scrambling around. He just said, I'll do it." But they have always said the top 6 can bat anywhere. Were they proven right by that? I don't think that's true.
I think what was proven was that you can have someone like Travis Head opening the batting when you've got Marnus Labuschagne coming in at 3 and Steve Smith at 4. If your whole team is a sort of a baseball ensemble, chucking someone into that role is potentially catastrophic. But there was
underestimating the way Heady bats by putting him in a baseball category. He bats to the circumstances, doesn't he?
Certainly batted the circumstances in Perth, didn't he?
Yeah. He's not a one-trick pony. Travis Head.
No.
Oh, yeah.
This was a great summer for Steve Smith, actually, I thought.
Good old Steve.
It was what do we think about Steve Smith's future? So he's taken the job, I think, as 10 times, I think, as a Test match captain. He's won 8, drawn 1, lost 1, lost in Melbourne. So what's the medium-term time horizon like for Steve Smith? How much longer are we going to have him?
Jobs are easy it's easy when you're doing someone else's job, really, isn't it? You fill in as a captain. It's probably a lot easier than being the captain all the time. Yes. Certainly, the word was, and I mean, I have never heard it from him, so I don't know that I can't confirm it. But there was certainly the word was that his nose was right out of joint, that he wasn't given the captaincy. That Pat Cummins was given the captaincy ahead of him. His head was in a bad place then. Nobody can predict what Steve will do. I think they've managed him brilliantly. And this is the great common sense of Andrew McDonald. This is a guy who's only got so much cricket left in him. Yeah. We're gonna maximise that cricket, which is what they do with Pat Cummins as well. But so he can live in New York. He can He can ride his bicycle. He can do whatever he wants so long as he shows up to the Test matches. Yeah. I think he's renewed. I think I think he's loving the game again. He wasn't enjoying it before. And if he gives up cricket, he's got to face what he does next.
Yes.
And I get the feeling he's not really up for that yet.
Yeah.
I get the feeling that Steve Smith's... When you're Steve Smith, you only know cricket.
Yeah.
So you take that away, that's terrifying. Absolutely terrifying. You can go to Manhattan and be distracted by the traffic and the buildings and for so long, but you've still got a bit of time left in your life, haven't you?
Yeah. I wrote a piece last summer where I said that maybe Steve Smith is the next long-term Australian captain. If Cummins retires in the next 2 years, I think we'll have more of Smith than in the next 2 years. I think he's finding motivations. I think you're right that period immediately after he didn't get the captaincy as a matter of right from Cummins. I think he did struggle to redefine himself. I think that was what the flirtation with opening the batting was all about, was trying to find some sort of means of reorienting himself.
Yeah. He was a bit bored. He was looking for purpose then. When it was Cummins or Smith to take over from Payne, I was against it because I think I was gun-shy. I was sensitive to the fact that if Smith is captain, will everything go back and be seen through that prism of Sandpaper Gate and what happened there? I don't think that's true now.
Yeah.
I feel like we've moved on from that, but I'm not sure. I'll get back to you after I go to South Africa later this year. But where we haven't played a Test match since. Yeah. But I don't know. You guys might know some indication of that, but I think everyone's kind of forgiven Steve Smith for what happened, and I think it's kind of something we don't really want to talk about anymore. I'm not sure. Am I wrong? I don't know.
Straw poll. Yeah. Who do you think? Do you think that Steve Smith could captain Australia on a long-term basis again? No. Interesting. Right. Okay.
You got one person with you.
Okay. All right. Yep.
All right. Okay. All right. Yeah. No, I don't. I can't see it happening. Yeah.
The biggest.
You need somebody with a bit more longevity in them. If there is a potential to get how old's Alex now? If there is a potential to get somebody in who can give you 6 years, you've got to take that over someone who's possibly got 12. We don't know. Steve might just play one more summer. He's talking about the Olympics, isn't he?
Yes, he is.
He wants to play in LA, but that's in the little game. That's not necessarily Test matches.
And I guess potentially if he proves himself again as a T20 player, which he now has the opportunity to do in the T20 World Cup, then he could cultivate a franchise career, which didn't appear possible 18 months ago.
No, he's been rejected from franchise cricket, isn't it? No one ever seemed to want him. Yeah, he was always humiliated in IPL
auctions. What a great opportunity for him to do it in India in front of
I'm so happy
Indian audiences and Indian buyers.
I don't know if you like me, but I really struggle to engage with T20 cricket, but I'll watch it when Steve Smith's batting. He's just one of those guys you want to watch. He's so creative. And while he can hit a big ball, he's not just a power hitter, is he? No, he's somebody who brings a little bit more than just brawn and a good eye.
But he's also bigger and stronger than he was 2 years ago.
Big, and he spends a lot of time in the gym.
Yeah. So, Pete, where does cricket sit at the end of a summer like this in the national life? Is it still significant? Is it momentous? Does it only matter when India and England are here, or otherwise is it a bit I don't know, meh?
I'm distracted. What is that?
Yeah,
someone's telling jokes at the back of the crowd. Yeah. Where does it sit in Australian life?
Yeah. I mean, I've got a good feeling about it at the moment because we packed out the Wheeler Centre.
Yeah, the Test cricket and the place of cricket in Australia. So I think it just gets bigger all the time. Right. I think Australians are really engaged with their cricket team and really engaged with Test cricket still. And I think our experience shows that, and I think the experience of this summer and last summer shows that. Having said that, you will hear me writing like everybody else next summer that Test cricket's dying when no one shows up to see New Zealand play 4 tests in the summer because we have very short memories. Yeah. But I think it holds a very cherished place in Australian public life. And I reckon I know that because when I reported on... I was in South Africa when the sandpaper thing went down. In fact, I was the only print reporter in the box that day. Actually, I don't think I'm allowed to say that publicly yet, to protect my colleagues. But I remember, your face is a bit too close to the blackboard to read the writing, particularly when something like that happens. And it's hard to get a sense of it. And I remember I did an interview with some sort of cooker shock jock at 3 a.m. on, one of those radio stations that are terrifying. And he was pretty head up. And I was going, I feel like this is a big story, but I'm not sure. Now, if you write a story that really connects with the public for The Australian, you get 200 responses. Is a fair indication that people really like the story. So I wrote the story, of course, we're out of whack in the time zones, and I sort of had 90 minutes sleep or something like that, and woke up and I looked. There were 2,000 comments on the newspaper story I wrote that day. And when there's a big story in cricket, it kind of it shakes the foundations. It still matters a lot in Australian life.
It was interesting. I was back in Australia. I'd gone to talk at a cricket club out in the bush, and my mate and I, whose couch I was sleeping on, we were sitting
before you were an icon.
We were watching the cricket, and we saw Bancroft stick the sandpaper down his strides, and we both looked at each other and went, "Geez, what's all that about?" Well, we're going to hear more about that. And we went to bed, and the next thing I knew was my girlfriend rang me in the morning and said, "He's got to resign, doesn't he?" I went, "Well, what? Steve Smith's got to resign?" No, he won't have to resign. There are protocols for this. The game has means of dealing with ball tampering. This will blow over. How much did I know? Yeah. But what I hadn't seen at that stage was the press conference where Smith and Bancroft had clearly been economical with the truth, and it was not so much the. It was the offence, but it was also the Australian team's impenitence in the aftermath of it. They were confused by the backlash. They bridled in the face of criticism, and it was a case, I think, where the time zone was interesting in that story because it was a little bit late for the morning editions of the newspapers. So in some senses, I think the story galloped ahead.
In the day,
It galloped ahead on social media, and we were playing catch up in the press box. We were catching up with the national mood.
Where do you? Australia I thought it was really interesting because Australia trust was broken.
Yes,
I think Australia had put up with a lot of shit from that cricket team, and I'd never covered a cricket tour that was as ugly as that tour. I kept referring to bin fires. And you'll recall the run out of AB de Villiers where David Warner was screaming at him, and then Nathan Lyon dropped the ball on the prone batter.
It was the Rabada shoulder brush with Smith.
And there was the fight in the stairwell. And I could hear in commentary both teams accusing each other of ball tampering in the first test and wrote it at the time. And I think Australia was willing to put up with that to a degree, although I reckon they're just starting to go, you know what, this is really turning us off. We don't like to see our cricket played like that. And I remember having a go at David Warner about it at one point, and he's changed his tune since. He says, they only remember you for the runs you made and the games you win. And I thought that's very naive. That was very naive, and he learned a lesson about that post that match.
So where's the team now, Pete?
But just to finish my point, I think we put up with them when they say we play hard but fair. But hey, that wasn't fair, and Australia were very upset. Australia was very upset by them.
So has this team re-endeared itself to the Australian public?
Okay. It was a very important moment, I reckon, for Australian cricket. I think it was a very confronting moment for the cricket team. Yeah. They had they'd lost their moral compass, you might say, and they'd lost sight of what Australia expected from them. Now, that was 7 years ago, and I think that goes to how, get back to what an important part cricket plays in Australian life. I mean, where do you think we sit with cricket in Australian life at the moment?
I think there's, as far as the Australian team's concerned, I think they're going okay. I think they've maybe drifted back into some bad old habits in the last 18 months or so. The team feels a little bit cut off at the moment. The team feels a little bit insular and inward-looking and clannish. Now, the best teams have a degree of kind of esprit de corps and a kind of a us against the world mentality. But I did think that there was a bad sign in that last Test match where the players pushed back at criticism from Stuart Clark in the commentary box and refused to give an interview to the ABC at the end of the day's play. Now that seems to have come from the players, sort of saying, we're not going to put up with that. We're going to fend off criticism. Touch one, touch all.
I don't think that really moves the dial with the general public.
Maybe.
The general public's. They've got Travis Head, mate. They identify with the team. Travis Heads.
Maybe. But I do feel they seem a little bit more remote than they did even 2 years ago. If any of you watched the 3 series of the Test, that Fly on the Wall documentary series that was made under the auspices of Cricket Australia through Amazon, I think they did a great job of kind of reintroducing the team to the public, creating characters, creating narrative, humanising them. I just think they've kind of given up on that over the last couple of years. And there was something bemusing this summer, wasn't there, about the fact that Pat Cummins was visible in every single ad break, and we got 4.5 days of cricket out of him in the whole summer.
Well, Sam Constas was in a lot of the ads too, mate. You remember Sam Constas?
Yeah. Pat was overexposed by comparison, wasn't he?
He was, yeah. I still think that they're a very identifiable team.
Yeah, they are. Sure.
I mean, they're blessed to have a character like Travis Head in among them, who's so good and just sort of fills that gap that Doug Walters had, that the Rod Marshes had, that those people had in Australian cricket, a lovable larrikin kind of
So
thing.
do we care about the T20 World Cup, and do we care how Australia's going to do? Right, okay, that question answers itself.
The most interesting thing about World Cups is the geopolitics. Yeah. I think, for me, it's much more interesting than how far somebody's hitting a bloody cricket ball.
It is peculiar, isn't it? It's been a strange last 10 days with this foie deux between India and Pakistan and Bangladesh. In some respects, it was kind of, we were always coming to this point, were we? It's, I think, not for 15 years has an ICC event not had India and Pakistan in the same group. It's clear that it's kind of the... we've sort of monetised their ongoing sort of diplomatic enmities. And we were always going to get to a certain point where one or other of them did not want to go ahead and play. It could have been India. It ends up being Pakistan. But
$250 million that game's worth,
that
clash is worth. Yeah. It's a lot of money, isn't it?
It's going to be an amazing game on Sunday, isn't it? You wouldn't want to be the guy that drops the crucial catch, or who bowls the loose final over. So
that stuff's always fun, isn't it? To see, will they shake hands? Yeah. I mean, and the geopolitics, I mean, it was almost UN level with Pakistan demanding that Bangladesh are at the table when they negotiate whether they'll play and appearing to win some concessions towards Bangladesh from India. So it was...
Well, I mean, looking forward, India versus Pakistan in a group game is great, but India versus Pakistan in a knockout game, which could easily happen later in the tournament, that's just going to break all existing box office records. But how much do people care out there about the T20 World Cup? Are people out there who... Put your hands up if you've got a Prime Video subscription and are actually watching the games.
Yeah, that's good.
That's okay. That's not bad. That's probably more than I thought. Has anyone got a score from Oman versus Sri Lanka? I saw Sri Lanka got 225 off 20 overs. I think we can... 3 for 60, okay. After 18 overs. So anyway, I'm quite looking forward to Nepal versus Italy later tonight. I always quite enjoy seeing those smaller countries. And, of course, Australia-Zimbabwe tomorrow night, and who can forget what happened in the first World T20 when Australia played Zimbabwe? Yeah. That's actually one of the for those who can't remember,
they were a
Zimbabwe won.
That was a good Zimbabwe team.
It was a good Zimbabwe team. Yeah, exactly.
It was.
Yeah,
They weren't bad.
And that is actually one of the advantages of T20, isn't it? That it does conduce to upsets. Although so far we haven't seen the upset that I think this tournament probably needs to kind of set the tensions going. Actually,
someone always.
That's actually not so much of a surprise. But
T20 is the perfect game for these, because it reduces the difference between the teams, which is exacerbated in a one day or
the team,
exaggerated really.
The longer the team, the greater the advantages multiply. Now we've actually got the opportunity for you to ask us some questions tonight.
Which will stop Gideon asking me questions.
Yeah, exactly. I've put Pete through the ringer. So if anyone would like to ask a question of Cricket et al. Live, please put your hand up and we'll send a microphone round. Pete, you were going to do this bit. You were going to identify the questioner.
Oh, am I?
Yeah.
Hi, my name's Andrew.
Andrew.
Hello, Andrew.
Hello. I wanted you to play the blame game. Who of Brendan McCullum, Ben Stokes or Harry Brook was most culpable for England's loss?
So
that's a good
was
question.
Most culpable of
their defeat. I think it's got to be laid primarily at the feet of McCullum. McCullum's kind of the ideologist in that England setup. You haven't mentioned Rob Key, of course. Rob Key, of course, was the guy who was taking his advice from McCullum and going along with McCullum's brainwaves. I think that you did see a rift form between McCullum and Stokes midway through the tour. Stokes gave that bizarre press conference, didn't he, where he talked about Australia not being a place for weak men. I think you got a feeling that Stokes wasn't completely on board with the way in which England had approached this tour. You can't really blame Harry Brook because, he should never have been in that position in the first place. I mean, his teammates shouldn't have been out with him under those circumstances. The England setup should have dealt with him immediately and made it public. The fact that it came out at the end of the tour just made the whole system look completely ridiculous. And we're living with the consequences of that now. I think you look at Harry Brook and you see a cricketer who is actually vaguely freaked out by the forces that he's released by his indiscretion. And if it had been dealt with at the time, if it had been dealt with in a public and exemplary fashion, we would have been 4 or 5 months down the track now. And sure, we'd be looking over our shoulders at it, but it would have felt dealt with. These cover-ups are always worse than the conspiracies, aren't they?
It shows you how intimidated they are by the thought of touring Australia, England teams. Yeah. And not that Australian teams aren't intimidated by the thought of touring England, but they hushed that up to stop the Australian media finding out about it. They were terrified of that getting out. Harry Brook's just, in this instance, and when he plays cricket, is a result of that consequence-free dressing room that they have. You sit with some of the older players and say, particularly when Brook and a few of those guys will play a shot, they just say, if I played that shot in my day, I wouldn't go back to the dressing room because I know that there would be a captain or a coach there just asking me to account for myself, and my life would be hell. From there on in. But it was like, oh, bad luck, mate, you missed that one, you'll get it next time, sort of thing. Anyway,
well, there's a bit on the line for England in this T20 World Cup, isn't there? They've got talent, they've got resources, they've got all the advantages that a team like that should enjoy. If they don't get through to at least the semi-final stage and potentially even the final, then I think people will revisit McCullum's tenure as coach.
Key and McCullum have done a good job. I mean, don't get me wrong, I'm terribly disappointed, and that's why I sort of slagged them off so much by that series, by that performance they put in this summer. But they turned around a cricket team and a cricket culture that was appalling. That last that team that came out here 4 years earlier, how many had it lost? Like 16 games. God knows what.
Yeah.
It couldn't win a game to save its life. It was frightened to win. Remember, it backed off the chance of winning in New Zealand in a Test match. They've actually created an entertaining.
Shambles.
Yeah. They're very entertaining until they come up against a team like Australia, who just played, or an outstanding cricket team.
They're a disciplined cricket team. They're an organised cricket team.
Caught well, bowled well, wicket kept well, all that stuff.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Question.
Andrew. Yeah. Okay.
Hi, I'm Ross.
It's Ross. Yeah.
Hello, Ross.
How's Cricket Australia doing as a custodian of grassroots cricket in Australia?
That's one for you.
It's a good question. I mean, the idea that they are a custodian is, I think, actually a relatively recent development. I don't think 20 years ago I thought of Cricket Australia as being a custodian of grassroots cricket. I thought grassroots cricket looked after itself pretty much. I mean, it's not like we exist on handouts from Cricket Australia. I don't look to Jolimont for guidance. Cricket clubs at grassroots level are run pretty much the same way as they have always been run. In some senses, the expectation that they support grassroots cricket has come about because of the hugely enhanced revenues and people wondering where that money is going. But in the 1990s, no one thought about, I need a new pair of pads. What's Cricket Australia doing for me? I think that their responsibilities extend to creating, an attractive international team, a team that makes Australians feel good about their game. I think that goes to protecting the core values of Australian cricket, and when those values are violated, that is felt all the way down at grassroots level. People felt very strongly at participation level about what happened at Sandpapergate. It will be interesting to see when they come to making a decision about private investment in the game, as to how much they talk about doing it in the name of the fans, and that will be completely bogus, frankly. They're doing it in the name of the exchequer, not because it conduces to a better lot for the kind of cricket that I play at the weekend. The fans made us do it is a bullshit argument that you will hear now and again from people in positions like that. Really what they're after is profit maximisation, and the game's welfare at grassroots level is completely secondary to that. They're doing well enough, but frankly, what Cricket Australia doesn't make much of a difference to me in my sort of daily experience of the game.
Perhaps the growth of women's cricket contradicts that.
That's probably true, actually. That's a fair enough comment.
Cricket Australia has sort of set itself up to engineer some outcomes and feels some responsibilities that the game should look like the country that it's played in, and hence, the focus on some sort of the sort of Asian leagues and trying to bring them into the fold, and bring migrant cricketers into the fold. And the work that they've done with female cricket's been outstanding. But you only do it when there's money there to do it with, don't you?
Actually, that's an interesting question. What does the Australian team look like now without 𝐒𝐮𝐬𝐫𝐞 in it? Yeah, I mean, does it look a bit white bread? Does it look a bit Shaney and Mitchie? Yeah.
There's Scotty Boland. Yeah.
So who's the next player of South Asian heritage who can kind of change that up?
There's a couple coming through in the 19s and things like that.
Yeah.
I think they are about, there's the Gurinder Sanders and of those sorts of people who are out there now.
Gurinder Sanders is getting on now, but
but
there are a couple of
coming
South Asian
through,
players in the under-19 Australian team. Actually, not quite as many as I would have thought. Because I think that it's pretty standard to say that at participation level these days, about a third of the players are South Asian. That's certainly my sort of weekend experience of it. That's not reflecting itself in the Australian team,
No,
or the
there's
Australian
reason-
teams, and I would have expected that to change a bit more by now.
That change comes slowly, though, doesn't it? Sort of it's generational change too, isn't it? Yeah.
Questions?
I did hear a report during that winter out at Harris Farm, whatever it's called. One's a supermarket, one's a suburb. I'm talking about the suburb. I don't know which one's which. That they're training in the nets all winter out there. Indian dads in there with with their daughters and their sons and their private coaches. Tell you what, no one's in a cricket net in Marrickville in the inner west in winter. So it's coming. It's coming.
Question?
Hi, Peter here.
Hi. Yeah. Hi, Peter.
Thank you.
Is this a question for Peter?
No.
Excellent.
I think I grew up where the tri-series, the one-day series was sort of, you couldn't see it going away. It went away. You guys are sort of alluding to, various test matches. Nothing is sacred, it seems, anymore. And then I heard, listened to sort of Todd Greenberg on The Great Cricketer, and he sounded like a bloke who was, very open to the disappearance of Boxing Day and New Year's Day tests. And I guess, specifically, do you think we should be worried about that, and sort of on what time frame?
Bloody oath. I think you should be very concerned, particularly that January test. As I was saying earlier, once those carpetbaggers come in and put their money into the Big Bash, how do you improve the Big Bash? The only way to improve the Big Bash is to get your best players playing in it. It's not by international players will bring some cachet to it. It's unlikely that Indian players will play here, or that would change it. But if the Big Bash has got Travis Head and Steve Smith and Pat Cummins and all those guys from the get-go, the Big Bash gets better. That'll come, and he says, you hear him say those tests are locked in, but they're not locked in for that long. No. And he says, they won't change the names because they're established brands here. In 20
In their
years.
favour is that they make money, and as Pete was saying earlier, they're bigger than ever. It would be a foolish administration that bit off its own arm by cancelling those test matches.
They'd come and say,
I think we are a red ball cricket culture in this country, and that's a great thing. We've given white ball cricket every opportunity to usurp red ball cricket, and it hasn't actually happened. People still find something about Test cricket really momentous. It would be self-defeating, I think, to interfere with that formula. Probably time for two more questions. Oh, look at those arms.
See?
G'day, my name's Matt. Just wondering, some of the themes that you started talking about at the start of the show about the pressure between the commercial interests and what I would call the public good kind of foundations of the game, whether it's Test cricket or domestic cricket, and thinking about relating that to your experience as a journalist and what's happening in news media, as well as some of the changes that's happened in arts and culture as well, where commercial interests are going gangbusters at the expense of some of those more foundational forms of art that rely on government funding, like theatre or the opera or the such. Do you find parallels in the experience of cricket and those other forms of expression? And I just wonder if you could provide your insights on that.
Well, actually, the mainstream media is actually not going all that well. Mainstream media is probably dying by degrees. It's certainly not the healthy, hearty, robust industry that Pete and I began our careers in. In some respects, it's been undermined in ways that a number of cultural industries have been undermined as well. Pete, you were going to say?
Yeah. No, I'm listening to that. Yeah. It has. I mean, the broadcast side of cricket is really good now. I would have thought. I mean, if you recall in the day, and they were very good at it. But when we had Channel 9 and the ABC covering cricket, it was a pretty simple affair. We now have, for better or worse, 3 radio stations covering the cricket, and I think that's outstanding. I particularly like the fact that somebody like Triple M covers the cricket and sort of talks to a different demographic, talks in a different way about the cricket than perhaps it's always been talked about. It's not necessarily for me, the way that it's done. It's not my cup of tea, but and it's not designed for people like me. But I think that's great. I think the fact that we have two broadcasters is outstanding, that they spend an enormous amount of money covering the game. But from our world, the newspaper world, it's getting harder and harder. They're hanging on. But I wrote the other day, there were tours there where we would have 4 or 5 of us from the Australian on tour, writing at a test match. In my last years at the Australian, it was me once you left. Yeah. It was just me, last bloke at the party.
When I did the Ashes series in 2005 for the Guardian, we had 8 writers at the test matches every day. We used to call ourselves the G8. Yeah. And the amazing thing about that series was that there was enough for everyone to write about. It's just the most amazing writing experience of my life. Now, I guess the Guardian's got Ali Martin and that's about it, isn't it? Simon Burnton came out for a period during the summer. It's expensive to put people on the road. It's actually harder and harder to justify
sport to cover.
Yeah. In some ways, we kind of manifest that change. These days, as far as covering or setting up properties to cover cricket, the barriers to entry have never been lower. It was easy as pie for us to set up a Substack account and for us to do the podcast. We run it very cheaply, as you can tell by the way that we're dressed tonight. We even make our own clothes. But what's difficult is sustaining it in the long term and monetising it over the journey. Pete and I will never get rich out of cricket et al., but we feel enriched by the experience, don't we, Peter? Probably time for one last question.
Good evening.
Good.
Yes, a woman.
Yeah, thank you. Thanks for coming.
I was really sad that no spinner was picked for the Sydney Test.
Great question.
The decline of Sydney's pitch as a spinning pitch.
Yes. Yep.
It was always a treat at the end of the summer of Test cricket to have that different pitch there. And, we get slated, Australia can't play spin. Well, what hope have we got if we don't even have one?
We don't even pick one. Yeah. Yep. Yeah. No, that's a great point. That's to me probably the biggest unresolved issue out of this summer is who's going to be Australia's next spinner, because it's pretty clear that we're getting to the point now where...
Is it a bigger question than that? Is a spinner necessary in the way cricket is played today?
Yep. I think we're getting into the position now in international cricket where it's the selection of a specialist spinner is going to be a little bit like it used to be the selection of a specialist wicketkeeper. Yeah. The spinner is going to be expected to do something else. They're going to be expected to bat. They're going to be expected to field. In some ways, India's kind of shown the way. All the Indian spinners can bat. They're all good cricketers as well as sort of virtuoso spin bowlers. I think we're now looking for if a player wants to be a first choice spinner in their side, they're going to have to bring another skill. That's just the nature of cricket at the moment. We may not see another Nathan Lyon, a guy who bowls a beautiful off break but bats number 11.
Yeah, and Australia seem to have decided that in pink ball cricket, you do not need a spinner. So that was great. I always objected to pink ball cricket because it kept me up late at night when I wanted to be out. But now I've got a really good reason to hate it because there's no room for spin bowling in it. You've got to have spin bowling in Test match cricket. Yeah. Isn't it ironic that T20 cricket is where spinners are thriving? That was one part of the game that I do enjoy watching last night was the Australian spin bowlers operating. It's become such a key in T20 cricket. But I don't know. There'll be a while yet where a really good spinner in the right conditions, if we ever get them,
Well,
we're less likely to get them in this country, but in India,
They'll
for
play them in
instance.
South Asia.
Yeah. It doesn't matter if you bat like Jim Higgs, you know, who infamously never went on tour once and didn't make a run, but
Faced one ball.
wow,
It bowled him.
hey, he bowled it.
Jim Higgs, 1975 Tour of England.
I still think there's room for the Jim Higgs, but anyway,
Okay, all right. You always think there's room for Jim Higgs, don't you?
my favourite cricketer.
All right, that's all we've got time for on Cricketer Tell this evening. It's been great to have you with us. Thank you very much for joining us at the Wheeler Centre. I've got to finish. But for now, it's goodbye from me.
And it's good night from him.